Learning how to make or build chords from any scale is easy and follows a very simple set of instructions. Now you may already be aware of the chords available in a major key by memorizing the following sequence: major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, and aligning this pattern with the notes of the major scale. For example, the key of C major contains the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. So lining this up with the previously mentioned sequence would reveal the chords C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. This method is easy and quickly reveals the chords available in the key. However, it does not explain where the sequence came from in the first place. If you're striving to be as knowledgeable as possible on your instrument of choice, then you should feel the need to dig further than this to reveal the theory behind this, allowing you to write chord progressions based on more exotic sounding scales and widen your tonal palette. The most common form of harmony is tertian harmony, which simply means harmony or chords built from thirds. To explain this, let's look at the G major scale, which contains these notes. To harmonize this scale in thirds, we simply need to play the first note, G, and then count up 3 notes in the scale, starting from this G note, which would reveal a B note. From here, you could count up another 3 notes within the scale, this time starting from the B note, revealing a D note. You could also view this as skipping every other note in the scale. These 3 notes, G, B, and D, form our very first chord, G major. You could also use chord formula to help identify this chord type using intervals. For example, the G note would be the first or root note. The B in relation to the G is a third interval and the D is a fifth. So 1, 3, 5, which is a simple major triad. If you're new to chord formula, then I have a very comprehensive video explaining how to build every chord using chord formula, which I will link in the description of this video. If you use this same method, but starting from the second note in the scale, you would end up with 3 entirely new notes, forming the second chord in this scale. For example, the second note in the G major scale is an A note. Counting up 3 notes in the scale would give us a C note. And counting a further 3 notes, starting from the C note, would reveal an E note. Altogether, A, C, and D. This time, the A would be considered the first or root note, and in relation to this A, the C note would be a minor third or flat third interval, and the E note would be a fifth, giving us 1, flat 3, 5, or in other words, a minor triad. If you were to use this method on all 7 notes of the major scale, you would be left with the following 7 chords and their interval building blocks, which, as you can see, match the original sequence used at the start of this video. Now, I'm not suggesting that you use this method whenever you wish to know the chords in a particular key. There are far quicker ways of doing this, such as memorizing the sequence of chords, the circle of fifths, or many other methods, which I've covered in depth in many other videos. This video simply explains where these sequences of chords are born from, so that you can better understand the theory behind building chords from any given scale. So far, we have only formed triads, or 3-note chord voicings from the major scale, but we don't have to stop here. If we continue to count through the scale in thirds for each chord, we could introduce even more notes to each of the chords within the scale, adding much more harmonic interest, which in turn will of course help avoid the typical cowboy chords we're all used to hearing. For example, our first G major triad was formed using the 1st, 3rd, and 5th degrees of the major scale. And if we took this one step further by skipping the very next note in the scale, we would land on an F sharp note. This is also a 7th interval, making our new chord formula 1, 3, 5, and 7, forming a G major 7 chord. Adding an extra note to each of the chords in the key would now reveal these 7 chords: major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7th, minor 7, and a minor 7 flat 5 chord, otherwise known as half diminished. These chords are all interchangeable with the original basic triad shapes and will give your chords a slightly more sophisticated or even slightly jazzy sound. We also don't need to stop here. What if we skipped 1 more note in the scale for each of our chords? This would now reveal an A note or 9th interval to our G major 7 chord, which would now be named G major 9. Repeating this process for the remaining notes in the scale would yield these 7 interesting chords, again completely interchangeable with any of the individual chords' previously harmonized counterparts. You could harmonize this scale using the exact same process again, now revealing these 7 chords, and even once more to reveal these 7 chords. Now that you understand how to harmonize the major scale, you will find that following the same process for any other scale will give you a whole new set of chords. If you would like to see this in action, for example using the harmonic minor scale, then let me know in the comments. As usual, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.